Good evening, everyone. My name's Rebecca Feinberg. I'm a PhD student up at UCSC right now. And about 30 years ago, give or take, Jeff Emery was also a student at UCSC, kind of fell headfirst into the world of wine without really planning on it. And he'll tell you more about that. But 30 years down the road, I showed up here to start my PhD program, and through a bit of luck and kindness, found myself head over heels with the wine world. And since then, it's become a part of my own work in ways that I couldn't have expected, but are really exciting. And since then, Jeff Emery has continued to be a really generous mentor and a good friend. He was one of the first friends I had here in Santa Cruz, and he truly goes out of his way to take that extra step to connect people with important contacts and to help them carve out a little corner of this town for themselves. So it is a pleasure and an honor to introduce Jeff Emery.
Thank you, Rebecca. She's getting her PhD in food anthropology. How cool is that? So the wine thing really fit in. And thanks to Event Santa Cruz for inviting me in this wonderful set of company I'm with. I'm honored. So I am winemaker, owner, bottle washer, truck driver, paper pusher, everything else for Santa Cruz Mountain Vineyard. Coming up this June, it'll be 35 years that I've done that. And seems to be what I'm doing if I grow up, but growing up is overrated. I also wear a hat of being a part owner of Osacalis Distillery here in the Santa Cruz Mountains. We do cognac-style brandies out of SoCal, and something I got involved with a little later. And I actually still have a UCSC connection that I sneak up there once in a while on Sundays and do a radio show on KZSC, which I've done for 18 years. So I'm still up on campus, but I'm usually not there when you guys are. I'm actually fourth generation local from California, Santa Clara Valley. My great-grandparents had a farm equipment supply store on West San Carlos when it was a dirt road and had orchards all around it. Their son, my paternal grandfather, took over the business, but even at that early age, the orchards were going and the city was coming. And he became the first Honda motorcycle dealer in the US, so he became a businessman. And then my father, their son, jumped out of that and took a left turn and became an aerospace engineer and was career Lockheed. So I basically grew up in the middle of the bell curve, 1960s Santa Clara Valley aerospace family, which was what many were. And when I was about 5 years old, that took a little sidestep, or at least added another element to my life. And my maternal grandparents bought property in Bonnie Doon. They wanted to have some redwoods to come visit. They lived in Southern California. And we started camping there on weekends. And then by the time I was 9 years old, in about 1968, we had a summer home, weekend home there. So the routine was Dad would come home from work, we'd pile my brother, my family, 2 Airedales, 2 guinea pigs, sometimes a salamander, into the Ford Pinto or Volkswagen Squareback, and we would head up to Bonnie Doon. So all of my free time, all of my growing up time was in the mountains in Bonnie Doon, and I had this sort of schizophrenic dual existence where I'd go to school in San Jose during the week. That had everything to do with my attitude and who I became, and really helped a lot. I would shudder to think what would happen if I just had that sort of standard urban existence. So the Santa Cruz Mountains really sort of let me be what I ended up being. Came time to look for colleges, and by then I was sort of a confirmed mountain kid, and I really only looked at Evergreen and Oregon State and UCSC because of their locations and somewhat alternative approaches. UCSC at the time had only written evaluations, no letter grades, and I found that really attractive. I was already sort of someone who didn't like boxes and preferred to think outside of the box in terms of those kinds of things. So the family did the tour around to colleges, but in the end I ended up going to UCSC 10 miles down the road from the family home. So I became a geology major. I chose earth sciences because I didn't want to be stuck in something that would be kind of a office job. I wanted something that would have some dynamics, keep me outdoors, that type of thing. And that was well and good, but I only got to the summer of my sophomore year when a friend of a friend came to me and said, oh, this guy I've been working with is bottling wine for the next 2 days and I can't come. Here's the address. Can you do it, please? So I headed up to Santa Cruz Mountain Vineyard up in the Vine Hill area, met Ken Burnap, the founder. He founded it in 1975 to make good Pinot Noir in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And he and I hit it off. He'd gotten his business to the point, he was only 4 years old at that point, where he was looking for some part-time help. And I jumped in, worked part-time, finished my degree to finish it, and never left. So what really ensued was a 25-year collaborative apprenticeship without any of us ever defining it as such. Wonderful gentleman. He's in his late 80s now. We're still very much in touch. Gentleman in the old true sense of that word, and a real mentor, and demystified wine, made it accessible, got rid of the snobbery, which still in the late 70s there was a lot of snobbery related to wine. So when he retired fully in 2004, I was by then psychologically ineligible for a real job. So I took it over from him, and he made that very possible. Wineries are very, very capital intensive things, and if it wasn't for him making it possible because he wanted to see it carry on, I wouldn't have the business. So all of those reasons are reasons that I really feel like my mission is to continue to mentor and to help other people in the business. And that happened, that came to me even as I hadn't even gone out to look for it yet when we were moving off the old property, when a man by the name of Dennis Hoey came up, and he was a friend of a friend, and he was young and big and could move boxes, so he was hired. And he had just finished UCSC in a business degree and thought he was going to be an EMT. But after about 6 months working with me, his life changed, and he became my mentee and sort of did the apprenticeship very much like I had with Ken. And that was not quite 10 years ago now. And only today, Dennis Hoey, to back up a little, Dennis Hoey started Odonata Wines under my label, under my building, and branched out, and he was only going to be, oh, I'll only be 800 cases. He's now close to 3,000 and has a real winery. And today he's closed escrow on a old winery in northern Monterey County that he is taking over. So, you know, he has his wings and has flown off to that. So I've had other mentors along the way, like Rebecca. This last season, I had a really wonderful guy, Colin Hood, who was doing an environmental studies program, and we did an official mentorship with me through UCSC, which I hadn't had before, where I had to, you know, fill out paperwork and email advisors and things like that. But he gave me something back that I hadn't expected too, in that he needed a project that fit the environmental studies idea. And so we thought about what we could do, and we came up with the idea of going through the self-assessment workbook that wineries have for sustainability practices. Something I'd always been interested in, but something I'd never sat down to do because it's this great big book that comes as a PDF, and you go through and you assess yourself on things. So Colin and I went through that, and it was very good for both of us to do that. It was a wonderful project that way. So I really think the whole the background of being in Santa Cruz also drives where I ended up and how I do things, in that it was and is a community where alternative lifestyles are there in front of you and you can see them work. And I felt somehow at a very early age, I already knew I didn't want a jobby job. I kind of read everything by Thoreau and Edward Abbey and those kinds of rebels. And in Santa Cruz, I saw people living their life and their work were one and the same. They didn't have to have the job that they did for 8 or 10 or 14 hours to keep their life going, that their life and work were intertwined with something they loved to do. So it has everything to do with being in this community and UCSC, especially in the late 70s and early 80s. There's, you know, some crazy things going on up there, but it really showed you that you could jump off that cliff and take those risks. And I really think you should rip the tablecloth off the table every once in a while, at least every decade, to avoid complacency and boredom, and sort of take those leaps. And my association with this town, I was open to leaving. I've traveled the world. I love traveling. I've always had an open mind to, like, well, maybe I could live somewhere else. But the older I get, the more I like coming home as much as I like leaving. So it's a great community to be in, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you.